Hey everybody, welcome to Tech with Joanne. I'm Joanne. On this channel, I cover how-tos, getting started in tech, business building, and general tech information. So on today's video, I'm actually going to be covering NFTs again. So I'll be doing a few of these NFT videos because everyone wants to know how to get into NFTs these days, and they're super popular and you guys will get a lot of information from this. So today's video is specifically for my fine artists. So if you are a fine artist, you paint, you draw, you sculpt, you do things like that, you may be wondering, how can you get into NFTs? How can you get in on this? How can you put your artwork out there and get seen and get known? It's not just for digital artists. And I know that it may seem like it's a little bit easier if you are a digital artist because, well, your artwork is already digital, so you don't really have to convert it. But that's okay. If you're not a digital artist, I'm going to be showing you how you can actually get your work, your physical artwork, and turn it into an NFT pretty easily. So definitely, if you are interested in turning your fine art into an NFT, then keep on watching this video because I'll be showing you everything that I do and how I turn some of my paintings into an NFT pretty easily inside of Photoshop. So let's get right into this video. What we're going to be doing is we're just going to be taking a piece of art and we're going to be turning it into a small NFT collection. So what you want to do is you want to start out with photographing your artwork, which is something that, you know, as an artist you should be doing anyway. So just put your artwork up, you know, on a wall, hang it, or whatever it is, whatever you're making, set it up nicely so that you can actually take really good images. Use a really nice camera, or if you have a high quality cell phone, then use a cell phone with a really good quality camera on it, because that's the biggest piece to this, is making sure that you aren't getting an image that's going to be fuzzy. Because that's not necessarily the look that you're going for. You still want it to look like your artwork, unless for some reason you have some kind of stylistic idea in mind. But for this, we want it to look like our artwork. So you want to make sure you're starting out with a really good photograph of the piece. Make sure that you are cropping it to your liking. I cropped mine out to the edges, because I didn't want, you know, any of the background shown. I have seen it where some of the background is shown, and that's because the artist wants it to look like it's hanging, so they do like an emboss and a bevel on it. So you could try that, but for this I just went ahead and cropped it to the edges. So that's really the biggest thing. Just make sure that you are starting out with a piece that's you can photograph really well and that it has a really high quality. All right, so after that, you're just going to take your piece and you're going to open it up in Photoshop. So let's open this in Photoshop. And now that we have this open, let's go ahead and create some layers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate this base layer. I just like to leave my background layer alone, just in case I start doing things and I want to delete it all. I didn't actually touch the background layer, so I just like to leave at least that intact, especially since I don't have to keep going back to history, or closing it out or whatever. I could just delete the layers and start again. So we're going to be working from the background copy layer, okay? So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we need to make some decisions about what are going to be our assets. So when you're creating an NFT collection, the collection typically has a base character or a base whatever it is, something that stays the same, something that doesn't change, right? So this woman, her hair, possibly, you know, something about the base stays the same. And then the assets are the things that change. It's the variations. So you could do her scarf, you could do her eyes, you could do her lip color, you could do her background. So for this, let's do the background and let's adjust that so that we can create the collection based on her having a different background. So what we want to do is we just want to create a folder, and I'm going to name that background. And then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to make sure that's inside of my background folder. So I'm going to select the background copy, and the thing that I want to do is I want to actually select this this background here, right? So I'm just going to go to the quick selection tool, and I'm just going to select our background. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to deselect the things that I don't want. So like these pieces of the braid that I don't want to change, I'm just going to deselect that, and I'm just holding Alt down so that I can get the minus sign. That's if you're working on a PC. So I'm just going to deselect these pieces of the braid that I don't want changed. All of this is good. You can zoom in and go as close as you need to. And the thing about it is that I don't want to smooth any of this out because I still want it to look like my painting. I don't want it to now suddenly look like digital art, because it isn't digital art. It's a painting. So I still want to keep that painterly quality. That's very important to me. So I'm just going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to make sure I select that, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key because I want to add to this. Alright, so the Shift key, and then I'm just going to select this over here as well, and then I'm just going to deselect the parts of her braid that I don't want. Oops, a little bit too far. So it's like a push and pull here. Just make sure that you're holding down the Shift key when you're selecting so that you don't accidentally have to start all over from the beginning. Okay, so that looks good to me. It's a nice start. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy it, and then I'm going to go to my empty layer and I'm going to paste it. Okay, so if I check that out, you can see I now have my background. So I'm going to view, I'm going to fit that on the screen. So now I have my background piece. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create an adjustment layer. So go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and I'm going to do Hue Saturation. So from the Hue Saturation layer, what I want to do is I want to make this a clipping mask. It's super important that I make this a clipping mask, because if I don't, it's going to affect the entire piece, and I'll show you that. So if I change this, you see how now I'm changing the color of the girl and the hair and everything else, and that's not what I want. I want that to remain the same because that's my base layer, right? So I'll set that back to 0. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create a clipping mask. So I want you to see it. So you see how now it's purple. I will right click on my Hue Saturation layer, and then I'm just going to select Create Clipping Mask. And now the background has changed. So it's really just that easy to do. You see now nothing else is being touched besides the background. So it's super easy to do. So the only thing you're going to do now is, because we're not creating like a 10,000 collection or something like that, you're not going to need to use code for this. You're just going to go ahead and save it. That's all you're going to do, is just you're going to save these as PNGs. So what I want you to do, right, is you're going to duplicate this however many background colors you want. So say for instance you want this painting to have 10 different backgrounds, including the original background. So we're going to duplicate this layer, drag it above the Hue Saturation, and then we're going to make another Hue Saturation adjustment layer. We're going to make sure that we create a clipping mask for that one. And then for that one, maybe we will make it maybe like a deep, hold on, maybe like a pink, a nice pink. So let's deselect this one. So you see how when I have the two, it adjusts. So just deselect that one so that it's not messing you up. And the only thing that you're going to be doing right now is you're going to be deselecting the ones that you don't want shown, right? And then selecting the ones that you do want shown. So for now, I'm going to leave these two off. I'm going to uncheck that one. And I'm just going to leave the backgrounds for now. So I'm going to create a clipping mask for this one. And I'm going to turn that clipping mask back on. So because this is now purple and I think that's good, what I'm going to do to save myself some trouble and some heartache here is I'm just going to merge these two. Remember, once you merge these two, then and you save it and you exit out of this, there's no going back. So just make sure that you have exactly what you want. In fact, what I would do is I would just do a layer for the background or whatever it is that you're adjusting. Do a layer and leave it and don't touch it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to duplicate this layer. And then I'm just going to drag it down under here where my background is, so I know that this is a free layer for me to work off of if I ever need to come back to it. And so is my background layer. So these two layers I'm not going to touch. It's just going to be these layers above. So I'm going to be doing the hue saturation and this layer 1. So I'm going to name this just the number 1, right? Because it's inside of my background folder. So I know it's my first background. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to layers and I'm just going to merge the visible. So now, as you can see, I don't need the hue saturation layer anymore because the layer is just purple. So once I turn this back on, you can see it has the purple layer. So now I'm going to turn these two off and I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at this one for this hue saturation. And if I'm liking the way that one looks, I'm just going to deselect that one. First, I'm going to copy this one. So let's copy that layer. I'm going to move it above and then I'm going to turn it off so that it's just these two left. And then again, I'm just going to go to layer and let's make sure I'm on it. And then I'm going to do merge visible again. Now I have two layers. So let's do my background folder again because for some reason my background folder is gone. So I just want to store these inside. So this is background number 2. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it inside of the background folder, and I'm going to put it inside of the background folder. So now I have two backgrounds, right? So if I toggle that on and off, you see how now I have two different backgrounds. And that's how simple it is to make your physical art into an NFT. You can just simply come in here and decide what it is that you want to change. So if I wanted to change her lips, I would have done the exact same thing. I would have selected her lips nice and closely. I would have copied them onto a new blank layer and I would do the exact same thing. I would do adjustment layers to adjust the color of her lips. I could do the same thing for her eyes. I could do the same thing for her headscarf. So just decide how many different assets you want on your painting. And then once you have the assets, create a folder for every single one. So I have a folder for the background. I would create a folder for the lips if I was doing that. I would create a folder for scarves and I would create a folder for the eyes. So whichever thing you're going to be adjusting inside of this painting, make a folder for it and then store your adjustments inside of that folder and then name them numerically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, because that's how you're going to generate the NFT. So let's say for instance you wanted to do a large collection and you were trying to use code. Naming this the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is very important because when the code goes through the iterations, it needs to know what it's selecting, right? So we're not doing that. We're not creating like some large amount. We're only creating like maybe a few of these because this is just a mini collection. But this is how you would do it. You would just select and adjust. But something on the painting is going to remain the same. So the woman is going to remain the same. I'm not adjusting her skin color, her necklace, her earring, her hair. I'm not adjusting any of that. So I would just select which pieces I wanted to adjust, which pieces I wanted to change, and then that's what I would do. So it's really just that simple to do. And then after that, what I want to do in order to save this is I want to leave whichever piece I want checked. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to export this. I'm going to save it for web legacy. And then from there, what I would do is I would save it as a PNG. So just let that come up, and then I'm just going to click Save. And let's find where we can save it. So I have my NFT folder. So I'm just going to save it here. I'm going to save it WWB2 because my original one is the number 1. So I'm just going to click Save. Let that go through the process of saving. It's a pretty large file, so it needs to, do what it needs to do. So now that I have this one saved, I'm going to uncheck that one so that it's not visible. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to export, and I'm going to save it. So once that comes up, I'm just going to click Save. I want it to be the same thing, except for this is going to be number 3. I'm going to save that. So let's open up that folder and let's see what we have. So let's go to our NFTs. Let's go to Pictures, and then let's go to NFT. So here they are. We have number 2. And we have number 3. And don't forget, I think we still had number 1. So there we go. Just like that, now you can see I have 3 different instances of this painting that I created. And what I can do now is I can actually go and I can sell these as different NFTs. So this is the original one with this blue background. These 2 are the ones that I adjusted inside of Photoshop to create a different piece of art, essentially. So I can now sell these as 3 different pieces of art and 3 different NFTs on places like Rarible.com or OpenSea. And I do have recordings where I show you how to upload onto Rarible.com and I show you how to upload onto OpenSea. So definitely check the link in my bio for that. You will see where I have those 2 videos uploaded. So when you need to know the next step of actually getting these NFTs sold, I do show you how to do that. I have trainings on how to do that. So make sure you check the link in my bio for that. But essentially, it's really just this simple to get your physical art turned into a digital piece so that you can actually sell it as an NFT on Rarible or OpenSea or the many other platforms that exist.